Welcome, and today I'm going to be talking about my opening title sequence Hour Zero and how the project uses or challenges conventions and how it represents social groups or issues. I'm going to be talking about my genre conventions and the common features you'd expect to see in certain types of movies. I picked sci-fi, so that is what I'm going to be talking about today. During the production process, I researched different movies similar to our opening title sequence idea, and I came across these four movies and TV series. Bird Box starts off with a normal routine of two sisters, which then descends into chaos when an unknown creature is making people commit. They have to stay inside and not look outside the window if they wish to survive. World War Z, however, starts off with a family in a car, then chaos also unfolds when the dad sees human behaving erratically and infecting others. The dad then guides the family to safety and doesn't follow the crowd. While The Last of Us Episode 1 starts off with a girl in her house, woken up to helicopters, ambulance sounds, and explosions. She's calling out for her dad and turns on the TV to a news report telling people to stay inside. And then The Shining is about a family that must stay inside for the winter because of the dad's job. The dad eventually descends into madness. A typical convention in sci-fi movies is to have emergency alarms going off to add suspense and tension. The loud piercing sound and bright colours immediately signals that something important is happening. This raises the stakes for characters and engages the audience. In The Last of Us, the main girl in the scene is woken up to a chaotic blaring ambulance siren. This shows that something in the city is corrupted and is gripping the audience's attention and creates enigmas as to why this is happening. We also follow this convention and created our own diegetic and emergency sound that alerts the whole family and starts the chaos. It plays over the rest of the sequence, changing volumes depending on where the camera is in comparison. This jolts the audience's attention and they understand how uncomfortable the repetitive sound is, just as the characters also would. This makes the audience feel immersed and understand it is a sci-fi genre. This relates to Barth's theory of semiotics, and this creates enigmas, hooking the audience in and creating a chaotic atmosphere. A typical convention in sci-fi movies also is where the alert takes over all the devices. This is shown in The Last of Us, where they had an alert on the TV, which shows the audience and characters the crucial information at the same time. There is then a reaction shot of a female, which tells the audience how to feel and react. We also do this in our opening title sequence, where all of the devices that were shown on screens had been taken over with a big emergency warning. We also have a female reaction shot, which proves Mulvey's theory that women get scared and call for the male's help in stressful situations and play the damsel in distress. In World War Z, another typical convention is for a 12A sci-fi is to have a family of four, where the male adult guides the way and helps them survive the end of the world. This is related to a wider audience because most people have a family, and a family of hope and love gives the audience hope and closer connection than a couple. In World War Z, the movie starts off with a family in the car, calmly together, and then when the chaos arises, the dad takes over and the family follow his every move. This nuclear family convention ties into our sequence with a family of four, where it opens with us seeing their everyday routines and we get to see their personalities gaining attachment towards them already. This is crucial when the family are confused on what to do, so the dad takes over and we realise he has a plan and knows what is happening. This proves Levi Strauss's theory of structuralism, that you must see the calmness with the quick cuts and no camera movement to juxtapose the extreme chaos when we get the alarm with a one-take, handheld, jolty camera movement to create anticipation. Another typical convention is to have a long continuous take to create immersive experiences and show you around the whole setting. When I looked at one takes, I came across The Shining, which follows the little boy on his bike as he goes around the empty hotel. This builds a sense as you're waiting for a long time for something to happen. I followed this typical convention and started our one take once the alert appears on the screen. This further emphasises the chaos that the family are feeling and make the audience feel what the characters are witnessing, helping them to relate and want to watch more. However, unlike most sci-fi horror films, we didn't have the symmetry and unison. Instead, we used the rule of thirds. This was intentional because we wanted to show the chaotic distribution that the alert causes the family. For mise en scène, a typical convention of the world of sci-fi is to have a low-key lighting, simple props with no technology, and everyday costumes to make it more relatable. An example of this is in Bird Box, where the lighting starts off high-key to create a happy atmosphere, which then turns low-key and harder to see to create a depressing and frightening atmosphere. We follow this convention by starting with high-key lighting to set the scene of a happy nuclear family. When the alert goes off, the lighting then changes to a low-key lighting once the chaos starts, to show darker, more serious themes. In Bird Box, the costume starts off bright and relatively basic to show their natural, structured day, which then changes to camouflage survival clothing. This is to further show the juxtaposition and chaos the monster has caused. We once again followed this convention by having all of our characters in clothing stereotypical to their age groups and gender, to set the scene that they're living their normal life routines. Finally, in Bird Box, the props, where the resources have become scarce, there are tools for fixing or defending themselves. This symbolises the themes of survival and technological collapse. We also showed signs of this by having an old World War II style knitted bag that the dad has the company logo on. This is to show the audience that the dad has been prepared for this lockdown and knows exactly what to do. We challenge the stereotypical sci-fi setting, a narrative of futuristic space stations or spaceships going missing. We instead start our opening title sequence in an everyday middle-class family household in a stereotypical family setting. This attracts wider audiences because more people can relate to these everyday settings and relate to the characters more. There are multiple different conventions of an opening title sequence, however there are a couple of main conventions that movies must follow. The title of the movie is ideally in bold and at the end of the opening title sequence with a stylized font. Before this, there must be the main credits showing the names of the key creatives and actors. There are then enigmas that give hints as to what the story is about, the setting, or the characters, without giving too much away. This is to keep the audience hooked and left wanting more. Finally, there must be a specific look and feel that matches the mood of the rest of the movie. For example, the colours, editing, and angle, which helps the audience further understand what they are watching. We're first introduced to the mother, who is in the kitchen making a cup of tea. This agrees and follows the dominant stereotypes of women working in a kitchen. It also further proves Butler's theory of performativity, and the mum follows the dominant stereotypes of a housewife. Next, we see the dad enter the kitchen after coming home from work in a suit. After he comes home from work, he goes straight into the living room to watch TV. This shows the dominant stereotypes of a family, where the husband supplies for the family by going to work and comes back and lets the wife do all the work. Thirdly, we're introduced to the daughter, who is in the bathroom doing her makeup, all dressed up to go out with her friends and listening to popular pop music. This proves Mulvey's theory of male gaze, that young women only care about their appearance. Finally, we're introduced to the teenage son, who is in a dark room playing violent video games in a football shirt. This juxtaposes with the daughter, who is in a light room listening to upbeat music. Enigmas. The enigmas in our opening title sequence vary depending on the compelling visuals and make the audience think about multiple different questions. You can see here, during the shot of the phone ringing, that an enigma is created for the audience, and they have to work out who is calling the phone and why is it so important that he can't take this call in front of the family. We also created the enigma by varying the pull focus so that the dad isn't in focus until the end when he reveals everything he knows. This makes the audience intrigued as to what his secrets are and encourages active engagement as they search for the answer. Titles. From these movies, I researched and looked at the way they use and format their titles. I followed the order of all of these films by showing the key creatives in making the movie an idea. I also followed the structure. For example, we ended with the director's name, just like in The Shining. I made the titles transition smoothly through the beginning of the opening title sequence to mirror the calmness of the narrative. We don't have any titles while the one take is going on, to show that the chaos has started and broken the everyday routine that the family usually follow. I followed the way World War Z does their final titles. I made our title font bold and aggressive, just like the movie is. It connotes that the movie is going to be just as aggressive as the title is. Social groups and representation. I explore and present multiple different social groups. However, there are main 3 social groups explored in my opening title sequence, Hour Zero. I first present class and status at the beginning of the sequence, right until the end. I then explore the age social groups once we are introduced to the whole family and see different age groups. Finally, I show the audience the representation of gender social groups, because we see both male and females perform in this sequence. Gender and camera shots. The audience can see that there are dominant gender stereotypes through the use of different camera shots. Maddie is a female, and we cut to her makeup at the beginning, which shows that's all she cares about. We also then see binary opposites when we see the siblings reacting completely different ways. The female daughter Maddie freaks out and is worried about seeing her friends, while the teenage boy just wants his game to work again. Butler's theory of performativity is also proved when the mum is running around the house, shouting at everyone and everywhere, while the men are calmer and don't care as much as the females. There is also a shot of the mum in the kitchen making a cup of tea, which connotes this is her only role in the family, while the male father has just come home from work and goes from the living room straight away, not helping his wife. These shots prove the dominant stereotypes of gender. Gender in editing. The audience also see gender stereotypes from the editing. Once the female mom starts to freak out, the one take starts and the camera stops and starts to be shaky. This mirrors and connotes that females create chaos. Finally, once the male dad comes into the shot towards the end of the opening title sequence, the one take also ends. We then have a calm shot and continuous editing, which signifies that once the dad comes into the shot, everything is calm and collected once again. This proves Mulvey's theory of male gaze. Class and status shown through mise-en-scène. The representation of class and status is shown through the mise-en-scène of the opening title sequence. The house is relatively big, which connotes that the family is wealthy enough and a part of the stereotypical middle-class family. The costumes of the whole family are also high quality, no matter what age they are. An example of this is when the audience see the dad, Isaac, in a tailored, expensive suit. This connotes that they're from a wealthy middle-class family because they can afford expensive and high-end quality stuff. The props in the opening title sequence also show the family is from a middle class by the expensive devices that eventually get overtaken by the alert. An example of this is in Sam's bedroom. He has a full gaming set, and which we can see can be extremely expensive. This proves that the family aren't struggling with money. Finally, the use of NVC from the mum and dad at the beginning further show a stereotypical middle-class family. For example, the mum is at home making a drink in the kitchen when the dad, Isaac, has just come home from work. She says, "Would you like a cup of tea?" which shows the dominant representation that the wife of a middle-class family stays at home and lets the husband go off to work and make the money for the family. Age shown through sound. We also see the representation of different age groups through the use of sound. First, we hear the parents watching and listening to the news together. This then contrasts when we hear diegetic sounds of the daughter Maddie listening to popular pop music while getting ready. This follows the dominant stereotypes that younger age groups don't care about the importance of what goes on in the world, while older generations want to know the political issues in the world. We also hear diegetic sounds of the young teenagers arguing in the corridor loudly. This follows Kelly's theory that young kids create chaos wherever they go. At the end of the opening title sequence, when the dad walks into the noisy room of the rest of the family arguing, he only has to speak once, saying "listen," for everyone else to go silent. This once again proves that older people have more assertiveness over younger generations, and overall, the sound of my opening title sequence shows that younger people are chaotic and noisy, while older generations are dominant and more intellectual. How did we adhere to the social groups? We adhered to the gender social groups as we followed the dominant stereotypes that males are strong, assertive, and rational, while women are seen as nurturing, emotional, and submissive. This supports Mulvey's theory on male gaze and how males see women. We also agreed with the gender stereotypes and showed that teenagers challenge authority and argue with older generations, creating chaos. While the parents are more stable and focus on keeping the family safe with a motive to survive. This also follows Kelly's theory of age. Finally, we showed that they're in a middle-class lifestyle where the male adult goes off to work to support the family while the wife keeps the house tidy and looks after the children. Thank you for watching, and I hope you now understand the different conventions.